cultivate cultivate a capacity for kindness. So, close your eyes. Take a few moments to breathe in and breathe out. Alrighty. Oh. Let's do these. Let's get started, chat. Okay. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. Just a reminder that although I'm a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. Everything is educational or entertainment purposes only. If y'all have a concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. So we've got we're gonna go into our group coaching stream once again. So we've got content creator. We've got our content creator coaching stream today. So we're gonna hop into our group of content creators and let's kind of check in with people and see how everybody's doing.
Ed.
Hello.
Okay, no.
Hold on
Hello.
a second.
Hello.
We are live. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. And there we go. Hey everybody.
Hello.
How y'all doing?
Hey.
Hello.
Dude.
Good.
Good.
Nice to see everybody. It's nice to see Smirky. We missed you the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
That's life though, right? So stuff happens. And so let's go ahead and start off with check-ins. And anyone want to... Actually, let's start with this. Does anyone want to try to fill Smirky in a little bit about what happened last week? Or what we kind of focused on or what y'all took away?
Yeah, because I read up a little bit, but I'm sure, having the...
So we started realizing that, like, it's not just enough to have these, like, personal epiphanies that we're working through. Did we have one for you?
For me?
Yeah. Did we have a stream where we picked on you?
Did y'all? I don't know.
Oh, we could have done it while you weren't here. No.
Maybe.
No, but so far a lot of us have had these moments where we've had these like big epiphanies that the group has like helped us reach, and we realized it wasn't just enough to have those, but also to use that knowledge that we gained to help us reach those goals uh, that we're setting out for. So it's not just like a lot of it's professional. So, you know, Zell and his job hunt, as well as like Ruby with her move and her change of content, and Kathy in developing her career, and me trying to be more confident and get the things I want, like a job in the industry. So
Anyone
that's
else
what
want
we're
to add
focusing.
anything?
Yeah, so I think specifically last week we talked to Kathy about some of the stuff that she was talking about, and we sort of broke down decision making and why, you know, taking a pragmatic approach to all your decision making can be limiting and doesn't apply what is, you know, personally fulfilling to you in those things. And so we kind of created like a flow chart for Kathy in the sort of different decisions that she was pondering and in what ways we could sort of tackle the big sort of thing, which was for Kathy, like how to progress and attain the ambitions that she was going for. And so we kind of broke things down, and so yeah, I think a lot of last week was specifically talking about decision making, but not just from a pragmatic point of view. Yeah.
Anyone
Nice.
else want to add anything to Phil Smirkian? Yeah, so I think Smirky, your colleagues did a great job. Um, so just a couple of like simple kind of not ground rules, but sort of just things to acknowledge. The first is that sometimes stuff goes on, right? So part of the advantage of group is that like it sort of continues, and it's our job to kind of catch you up, and also that we, now that you're here, we're gonna bring you back, right? So you're gonna become a part of the group again,
Great.
and sort of we don't I'm not trying to. So oftentimes when you point out someone's absence, it can lead to shame. That's not really our intention. Our goal is to
Yeah.
really just make sure that we're a group of people who are like leveling up together. And sometimes, if your friends miss a couple of weeks of like running raid dungeons, like when they show up again, it's our job to let's just run through those dungeons a couple times real quick and like get you the loot that you need so that we can all continue progressing together.
Mm-hmm.
So
Makes sense.
just to sort of summarize, I think where the group is now, and this is kind of for everybody. So as Metric kind of said, we spent the first, let's say, 6 weeks or so really getting to know each other a little bit and also learning how to ask questions and listen and pay attention. We also had to spend some of those 6 weeks actually unlearning particular behavior, right? So like reflexive support that is just does not foster conversation or really depth when we can say like, oh, that must have been hard for you. It's important to be empathic and really try to understand where someone's coming from, but we don't want sometimes like that sort of empathic talk, that the sort of the positivity. Sometimes it can be false. Sometimes it can be toxic. And so we
Mm-hmm.
want to be really intentional and authentic with the positivity that we feel. And if we don't feel positive, we don't want to pretend to be positive. And by sort of unlearning some of that behavior, we can dive a little bit deeper. And once we learn how to do that stuff, then we kind of circle back to, okay, we're content creators. And we originally came here to try to figure out how do I balance, let's say, a job outside of content creation with content creation. How do I take my content creation to the next level? Do I continue creating content or do I not create content? In order to answer all of those questions, we need to have some sense of like who we are, what we value. And so we discovered a lot of bizarre things, right? So Ruby came in as sort of this like empathic stuff, like, oh my God, I'm going to do sound baths and meditate and things like that. But she's actually somewhat of like an entrepreneur, right? She's somewhat of a beast. And if that's the direction that she wants to go, like if she wants to deliver value and make the world a better place, but also like not just sort of do sound baths on the street corner for random people walking by, but really like turn it into something where she can have a large scale impact. And she's already investing a ton of energy and resources to moving to a different country and getting property there. And what is that going to turn into? How can we help her realize her dreams? For Kathy, we also dug in a little bit about, she's got a lot of these different options. Like she had a meteoric rise in the industry, getting promoted faster than once a year for a couple of years, and now for the first time a year has gone by and she hasn't gotten promoted. And so she acknowledges, for example, that you can't continue, otherwise you'd be president of the universe by the age of 60, or global overlord, I suppose. And so how can we help her understand, okay, so for like what you want to accomplish, how can we help you think through it, things like that. I think Zell mentioned to us that he received a job offer. And for those of y'all that read Zell's homework, we'll hopefully get an update on what happened there. And then Metric is also really thinking through like some of the, we started a little bit with like how Metric reflexively devalues himself and how that could get in the way of like what he wants to do and could potentially hold him back. And so really our purpose here is to leverage understanding of the self to achieve our goals. Okay? And I think Metric pointed out, what do y'all think? Has he put it dug into Smirky?
I feel like we haven't, right? Not
It's
yet.
time for your beats.
Not yet. Nope.
So we've got to just be a little bit careful. So just because we haven't done it yet doesn't mean like Smirky's like, he's just showing up, right? So we don't want to be like, Arr! So we have to make sure that he's comfortable with that and that we got to ease people into it, right? Like it doesn't, so we can kind of think about that. But let's start with check-ins. So let's hear a little bit about how since the last time you were in group, what you've been up to, a little bit about how you're feeling right now. And for those of y'all that had homework from last week, last week's homework was a little bit different. If you got a chance to do it, just let us know a little bit about what you kind of learned from the homework if you did it. So general check-in, how's your week been or last couple weeks? If you did the homework, any takeaways that you want to share with the group? And third thing is like, what do you want to kind of get out of group in a more concrete sense over the next, let's say, 3 weeks that we're going to meet? Sound good?
So, wait. Oh, you go.
I just wanted to break the silence. So.
I went first. I went first last week, so it's okay. You can. Go
okay, fine. I'll go first. No, this last week has been just more busyness. As you can see, my apartment is still a mess. We're figuring things out. We've started tackling a plan to. But I can't show you this, but our kitchen table right now is all covered in just anime figurines, and like literally, like there's got to be over 100 anime figurines on our kitchen table, and we have to deal with them somehow. So at least me and my roommate have a plan now. I also got that job offer. I accepted, so I start next week, which is exciting. And I have some thoughts, which I'll talk about in the homework. But overall, I think this is just a huge transition period for me. So just from all aspects, really, like job, I moved, and also I'm trying to like figure myself out. So in general, it feels like I'm just constantly in flux, and it's exhausting. But I'm hoping that I come out of this a better / happier human being. When it comes to homework, my specific task was to write about fulfillment and what is fulfilling to me, and what have I done that has fulfilled me. And TBH, I wrote the document and stuff. So if people want to read it, it's available in the Discord. But like basically for me, I actually have no idea. And I think it's come to a point where like either I've over romanticized the kind of notion of what fulfillment means, and like sort of like created this expectation around it that makes it feel like this unattainable thing for me. But Yeah, and I think it relates to my job because TBH, when I got my job offer, I was for sure happy about it, but it wasn't like with fully within my chest to be like, oh yeah, like this is it, this is the next step, because TBH, like I don't know what the proper next step for me looks like, and again, from this sort of like lack of understanding of myself and like what is fulfilling to me, I don't know if this is the step that I truly in my heart of hearts wants to take, but it is a step towards a direction, and that in itself I guess is okay, but like until I further understand my own sort of like inner compass, like I won't really know that answer for myself currently. Although maybe, I through taking a step in a direction, I find something that is actually fulfilling. So, at least it's exploratory, which is good. Um, but yeah, the main thing is just like I've lived my entire life just doing what other people tell me, and a lot of the things that I have found, quote unquote fulfilling, really is more about being acknowledged by others. And I realize that probably isn't the best place for fulfillment because I'm just constantly just doing things to make other people either be impressed by me or think that I'm friendly or nice or whatever. So like I need to figure out who I am better and stop making like the expectations around of other people. Like I don't want to be dependent on that. And that really goes to for the next 3 weeks, like figuring out a battle plan to figure out that stuff for myself is really, I think, where my head's at here. So
Okay.
that's everything.
Um, Zell, I read something last night that made me laugh really hard, which was uh, chronic people pleasers, when they realize that they don't have to like please people anymore, start describing that they're entering their villain arc, and it's really just setting healthy boundaries. So this is your villain arc. Welcome.
Yeah.
Um,
I did like a thought experiment during the week when I was like thinking about it, and it was like if nobody else in this world existed, like let's say like everything, like industries kept going, like movies still came out, video games still came out, but like no human being existed in the world, like what would I do? And I thought about it, I was like I don't actually know, because like so much of my stuff is like, oh, I want to play games with my friends, or I want to like perform for people, or like like in so much of my, so like that thought experiment was kind of funny to me. And yeah, like yeah, I don't know. I guess like you're saying, I had to go to my villain arc, figure out who I am, and then emerge as Megamind or something, I don't know. So
so for me, like November, at least like the ending of October is like the start of super seasonal depression. And it's tough. And So whatever the next 6 7 months of this is gonna be great. We're gonna tough it out. And I've already made more space to exercise and stuff, and get you know more active, and hopefully that'll help. Because I'm not the most active person anyway, and I really should. Just because I'm a hermit doesn't mean I can't, be active. There's like whole seasons of Lost about that, and so as for the homework, Ruby sent me some really interesting stuff that I read over, and it was not Ruby. Oh my god, I looked at Ruby. I'm sorry. It was Kathy. Kathy sent me some really interesting stuff, and I looked it over, and it was about how to apply, how to like tailor yourself to getting in good with a company, um, and I also am gearing towards more of community management roles, and I've joined some Slack servers and some actual like community management communities. I don't know how they describe it, but they have communities for community managers, and they have all these resources in them on how to tailor your resume, like what kind of community management is best for you. Um, and I realize now that it doesn't necessarily have to be within the gaming industry, although I definitely prefer it. But there is the also the other problem that uh, community management in the gaming industry can be a little bit more hazardous to your mental health, I guess, because we've seen what happens if a game has bugs or something on launch, uh, or if there's a glitch or something like that. Like, people want blood, right? So there is that, but I don't know. I'm still willing to give it a try. So I've been doing my research in there, and I've talked to a couple of my friends who are community managers who have been more than happy to help me out.
Awesome.
I can go next. For me, it's been kind of random, still settling down to my new apartment. I'm a bit frugal, so I haven't really bought anything from a store. I'm just going out on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace to just kind of furnish my place, and I found some really great deals, so I'm pretty happy about that. I'm also starting to explore the communities and neighborhoods around me in San Francisco. Um, Went to a Halloween party, which was great. Met some people who want to like grab food, go to more parties together. I also checked out a church this past Sunday. I haven't been to church in many years. It's not your typical church, it's a Unitarian Universalist church. I just wanted to see what that was all about. Met a lot of really cool people there. We were talking very much in depth about community and getting involved, as well as like charity work. And then just working. And my boyfriend's family was visiting from East Coast, so hanging out with them, got some Korean barbecue. Yeah, just living life and doing random things. Oh, and for the homework, I haven't really done much in like exploring my career path. I do have a one-on-one scheduled with several of my mentors this month, so I did want to bring this up, especially since I hit the 1 year mark. I wanted to tell them like, hey, it's been a year. Like let's explore something new I can do and just kind of talk out my thoughts and ideas. And surprisingly enough, after our chat last week, I got invited to a dinner at UC Berkeley for the MBA program. So I'm probably going to go over there and talk to them more about what's going on. Because I'm not planning to apply this year. I'm probably going to look in a year or so. But yeah, that's my update.
Okay, I'll go. I'm a bit like zoned out. I'm a bit tired. I've just been rushing around. I've been good. I say that like I haven't been good. No, I've been pretty good this week. It's been like emotional. I got my visa for Portugal. I still need to get residency, but from what I've read, like the visa part is like the tough part. I didn't think I was going to get it. I found out in like 2 weeks when they told me 60 days. And then I did that thing of like searching online and finding people that have been refused like multiple times. And then I got it in 2 weeks. I was like, huh? So yeah, after like 2 weeks of anxiety and not thinking I was going to find out until December and that I was going to be like stuck here for however long, like not knowing how long. A little bit like metric, this time of year is tough for me. I don't say I hate many things. It's a very strong word. I still don't say I hate Christmas, but I very much dislike Christmas. I find like it's close to I don't like it. I've had a lot of tough like news around Christmas. Like multiple years. It always just seems to happen in that week. I've lost people, multiple people in that week over my life. So it's always like a really weird time for everyone to be like happy. And I've got memories of Christmases that just sucked. And so, yeah. But weirdly enough, this year doesn't feel so gloomy. It doesn't feel so bad. Like normally I'm like, I really struggle, but I guess it's because I know I need to be in Portugal by March to get my residency. and I know I've got a lot to do. So it's kind of like there's something in me that's like, you've got a lot to do, so you cannot, like, I always thought it was winter depression, but maybe it's not. Maybe it was like stuff that happened to me, depression. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I've done yoga this week and I meditated this week, and the homework, like, I found really helpful. Like, I sent it to Metric and Zell, and I haven't had any feedback, and I don't even feel like I need feedback. Like I want to hear people's feedback, but in itself, just writing out what I want to do made me realize I actually want to do a lot. And like, I saw a meme, an ADHD meme the other day, but it was the ADHD urge to start a new business that you've never done before, and just know that you'll figure it out somewhere like along the way and it'll be fine. And I think that's like, I do a lot of that. I'm like, I want to do this thing. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Let's go. And through my life, a lot of people have been like, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could just do this. I wish I could just do that. And I've never like understood. I always just say to people, just go and do it then if you wish you could do it. And I didn't realize that I wouldn't say I'm impulsive. Well, as an adult, I'm less impulsive, but yeah, it made me realize I have a direction, whereas it used to be more in all over the place, and it's still a little bit more over the place. But yeah, I found just writing down the many notebooks of thoughts into more of a thing helpful. So yeah, that's generally been my week.
Awesome. I'm the last one. So general check-in, I guess, just kind of encompassing the past few weeks. I ran into Kathy and Dr. K at TwitchCon, and then I guess all my energy was just put into TwitchCon, and I was like, and the tank is empty. So that's kind of essentially what happened. But I have just been trying to get a lot of rest. There was a point where my sleep schedule was pretty much upside down, and I would be too much of a night owl, and I still sort of struggle with having good sleep. But I eventually fixed it, and have just been trying to slowly take all the energy and all the fun that I had in San Diego and putting it into, what's next for me as a content creator, which I'm not still entirely sure on, but I know it's something I want to put more time and effort into. So it's definitely on my mind. Generally speaking, feeling okay for the most part. I mean, sleep is something that I am trying to work through. Also, just trying to figure out, my, not necessarily figuring out my purpose, but kind of just like kind of making it more clear in my vision and trying to align that with what exactly it is I want to do, because it feels like I don't really have much direction right now. Which all throughout my life, being a student, you kind of have a direction kind of laid out for you, but now it's like you're the one in control of your own destiny, and that's kind of like, whoa, that's kind of weird. But the streams I have done have been great, and currently I've been doing some front page stuff, which has been really exciting for me. And I'm just feeling pretty great about that overall. Obviously, I didn't do any homework, so I don't have anything to share on that on the top of my head. But when I think about what I want to do over the next 3 weeks, first of all, just showing up is half the battle. So that's something I absolutely just, want to make sure I do. Wake up at a reasonable time, actually try to like enjoy the day to the fullest, rather than just waking up like X amount of minutes before said obligation or said meeting. And then I don't know. I just really want to do my best to speak up more, but I tend to be more of a listener and an observer half the time. So because I find, group sessions like this really insightful. And I tend to be more of a listener and someone who like acknowledges other people's stories, because I think there's so much that we can all learn from each other's stories. And also half the time I don't really know what to say. Like I kind of overthink how I want to construct words or responses or things like that, rather than just letting things flow, which can be good in some instances, and in other instances, that can also cause me to kind of limit myself and withhold things. So I don't know. I just feel like I, want to make sure that I'm, you know, participating in a way that I ultimately find a good amount of comfort in. So I think that uh, you know, like I didn't feel any shame like being out a couple weeks or anything. At first, like I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm missing a session, or you know, the thought comes in, but then I'm just kind of like, you know what, it happens, and you have to do what you need to do for you first and foremost. So because mental health does come first, and that is one of those things that you kind of say or regurgitate a lot, and then you don't really fully process. So that's something that I'm doing more to sit with. So yeah, I guess that's my check-in for the week / few weeks.
Cool. So maybe what we can do is it's nice to have you back, Smirky. So the first thing that I kind of want to point out is that I think it's really important to understand that everyone is walking their own journey, and we can kind of help each other, but we each have our own paces. I just want to give y'all a huge pat on the back, because I heard a lot of things over these check-ins that I think are like really, really, really important. Kind of almost going in reverse order. The first is Murky's kind of, I think, very almost wise what he said, right? So we always say like, oh, I should put, like, I got to take care of myself first. And we feel beholden or responsible to show up here because we're supposed to, right? And that's like how Zell has lived his whole life, which is, I'm supposed to do this, so I'm going to do it. And to really sometimes prioritize your own health, and for Smirky to not feel ashamed is actually a testament to everyone else in the group. Because y'all have signaled to him that, hey, we're not going to judge you. We understand that if you're not showing up, it's for a good reason. And, whenever you're ready to come back, Metric is jumping right in. He's like, hey, wait a minute. Right? So that's like good paying attention. Good job for creating such a like welcoming and non-judgmental environment. Couple of other things. I'm kind of curious. So like Ruby was saying, yeah, like, winter times, like I really hate holidays, which by the way is not unusual. So I get the most phone calls as a psychiatrist around the holidays, like especially from people who I'm no longer working with. I'll get like random phone calls from patients that I haven't seen in 2 years. They'll be like, hey, do you have a little while? Like holidays can be tough. I think we sometimes underestimate how hard they are. But Ruby was like, I'm doing yoga, I'm meditating. I don't know, this year feels different. Can y'all think of anything else that's different this year compared to other years?
Well, we're not like super locked down like we were for the last few years.
Sure.
So,
Yeah,
not
I've disliked Christmas since I was about 15.
So we haven't been locked down. Fair enough. What else is different this year?
Maybe Ruby's like thinking about changing her content creation plans, so there's some optimism there, something to look
Sure.
forward to.
What else? This is a read my mind question, and I'm going to keep on asking until one of y'all gets it right. And this is one of the times where I'm going to play the read my mind game, and I'm not going to give you the answer. I think. Unless we do this for like... Yeah, you could do it, because I don't think they're going to figure it out, Ruby.
Well, I know why I think it is. It's because I'm going to a country that doesn't celebrate Christmas.
Okay, that could be a part of it. Sure.
I found out that apparently Portugal don't, like, on Christmas Day, on the same day, they do a different holiday.
So that could be it. the answer that I was thinking of is that I think that we've learned about Ruby that she doesn't allow herself to be supported much, right? Like, is that fair to say? And I think for like the
yeah.
last couple months, like, what have y'all been doing?
You're doing great, Ruby. That stuff. Supporting.
Yeah, right. Like she's had a place here where she can share her thoughts and her feelings and notice things, discover things. Like she can even share with us, like, oh, like Christmas is not fun for me, and we're like, okay, like totally fine. We can talk about it if you want to not talk about it. And I really do think that this is what we tend to see. So from a scientific perspective, what we tend to see is like clinical improvements through this kind of stuff. So we'll see like statistically significant reductions in depression and anxiety, even though this isn't a treatment. And that's true of other things as well. So for example, like having a dog is not a clinical treatment and yet leads to clinical results that are significant in terms of reductions of depression and anxiety. There's all kinds of stuff that we can do to support our emotional health, our emotional wellness that are not clinical. And I think y'all have done a really good job of helping Ruby not feel alone. When Kathy says she's excited about stuff, and I think that's like, I don't know if y'all could tell, but like last week, like this conversation with Kathy injected Ruby with some energy, right? And then she wrote this thing that she sent to people, which I just want to clarify, Ruby, you tell us how much you want to talk about that, right? Is that fair?
Yeah. Like everything from underneath the highlighted green bit that I put in, basically.
So we're going to respect that boundary about the first section. But anyway, and I don't know that everyone saw it, but so just for those that did. And so I think that's really fantastic because like y'all have done a really good job of like inspiring her, helping her get excited, helping her think through all the random ideas that she's got. So while some people may envy Ruby for being able to jump in and start something, I think sometimes Ruby has told us that she gets overtaxed, right? Because once she starts something and she's figuring it out, then she goes back to, okay, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this. And then she had to take a step back, deep breath in, and make content that comes from the right place. And so we're going to help her on that journey. And I think y'all have already done a fantastic job. Kathy is meeting with her mentors. And it sounds like what I'm really happy with is that Kathy seems to be just like living life. You know, I don't get the sense that she's stressing too much, that a lot of stress has come her way, but that she's like, okay, thinking through these things, doesn't have to make a decision yet. Sounds like Berkeley's kind of interested or is interested in Berkeley, and she's going to be meeting with some mentors, and she's kind of like on track. Zell has accepted a job offer, and we'll also get to potentially his homework in a little while, because I think there's a lot of potential overlap between Zell and Smirky in terms of figuring out what you want to do with your life. And the other thing is that who would have thought on week 1 that by this point, Metric would be looking at resumes on Slack? Like, what the fuck is that, dude? Right?
Didn't see that one. Couldn't be me.
Right. So, like, I bet if we went back in time and we polled Twitch chat, like, who here is going to be the most likely to look at a resume on Slack? It's like, wouldn't have been Metric. You know, so I think that's what group is really about. It's about supporting each other, helping each other understand ourselves and other people, and also like helping people. Like, I can imagine that 8 weeks ago, if Metric had showed up on Slack, he would have had all kinds of self-denigrating thoughts and statements in his head. Right? Like, oh, like I can't do this. There's no way I can make a resume. I haven't done anything. And yet through y'all's support, and it seems like Kathy really went the whole 9 yards there in terms of like providing him with resources and really helping him get started and stuff like that. And that's what peer support is really about, is that we're all in this together. And I think we're really starting to see good progress. So I'm really proud of all y'all, and I think it's really awesome. As for what to do today, so I'm going to toss out a couple of topics. So as Metric mentioned, we haven't really done a deep dive with Smirky yet. I don't know if today's the right day because Smirky's just showing up, and it's like, so I think we need to be a little bit mindful of letting him ease back into it if that's what he wants. The other thing that we could talk a little bit about is I think there are a couple of concepts which, if we don't mention now, I want to sort of share at the end that really have to do with some of the thoughts that Zell's homework really kind of uncovered. And we can kind of dig into that, but that could be we could do that early as well, because I think it's a little bit about understanding where like motivation and purpose and direction comes from, because I think he's in the process of figuring it out. And then other things, I mean, just if anyone else is curious about something else or feels like they want the floor for a particular thing, if we want to help kind of like, you know, in some way, or you know, it's also kind of the floor is open to y'all as well. So in the absence of anything else, the two things that I would suggest are we just start deep diving with Smirky, or we talk a little bit about fulfillment, direction, where that comes from, you know, and like how to find guidance outside of things like school and your parents telling you to do something. What do y'all think?
And I'll just preface for the group that I'm okay with the deep dive if that is of interest, and the other possible topics also sound interesting to me. So I'm also pretty open-minded either way.
Thank you for prefacing that, Smirky. I think that permission is really important.
I'd really love to find out more about Smirky. Like, I remember thinking from the beginning of this whole thing that Smirky's such a nice, kind person, but also I don't really know much, not in a horrible way, but you're so supportive and kind, like, to other people, but like, I'd love to know what you want, and like, yeah, more about you.
I don't have a preference, and it sounds like some of the stuff that Smirky is thinking about also relates anyways, so
I think exploring fulfillment might, help figure out or provide a way for Smirky to kind of share his experiences as well.
Yeah, I think that figuring out, like, having Smirky discuss what he wants might give us an in to.
And
Where he's
Kathy,
going.
you have to step out in 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then what I'm going to do, let's do this. Let's start with Smirky. Now, here's the real question. So usually when we start these kinds of dives with people, I open things up. I'm happy to do that this time, unless someone else feels like taking the helm. And if I'm opening, go for it, Ruby.
So I noticed that Smirky said you've been thinking about things already, like, and yourself and where you want to go and stuff. And I just wondered if you were like happy to share that, just to give us an idea of where your head's at, like what you're thinking about.
Well, I tend to overthink things a lot, so half the time I'm not even like fully aware or acknowledging like all these different thoughts that kind of cycle in and out. But I guess it's this thing where like streaming has always been something that has interested me. You know, content creation has always been something that's like given me purpose over time, and I always had to kind of like not let that overtake my trajectory of getting a degree at a university or following the path that, you know, society's expectations, all that stuff. So once I like graduated, it's been almost a year since I graduated now, and once I did that, after taking a little bit of time just to rest up, I like kind of started asking myself like, okay, well, what direction do I want to like go exactly? Because it's kind of like the world is now my oyster, and that can feel a little daunting when, you know, so much has been going on in the world, just generally speaking, that's already caused a lot of, you know, stress and anxiety, just having to navigate that as a student, and now suddenly being thrown into the whole adulthood kind of world, trying to figure out, do I want to do industry? Do I want to you know, what would my role in said industry be? Would it be within content creation? Would it be within, you know, corporate 9 to 5 job? And I don't have to have all the answers right away because there's time. I'm young. I can figure everything out, you know, over time. But I would always feel like somewhat pressured from two different ends. One being just like the idolization of like being a full-time content creator that a lot of people like, you know, it's kind of like one of those things like, oh, if you're a partner, you made it. Oh, if you're a full-time creator, like you're doing good, you made it. Like, but I mean, it's all like a part of the journey, and it's kind of like it doesn't ever feel like I've ever like reached the summit. It always feels like, you know, the hill just keeps going up, and there's not really like any sort of like there's not really any purpose or definition of it except for the fact that it just keeps going, and the journey just continues, I guess. And then the other side of like so the one side being like, you know, the content creation side of it, the other side being the personal side of it. You know, you just graduated, you should probably get a job, you know, you should, you know, find a way to support yourself. And is streaming really the viable option to do that? Or, you know, is it better to do a job? Because I already have some industry experience with interning with Elgato and Corsair, so I got a glimpse of what that was like. Working that 9 to 5, time zones were kind of weird, and I was on a 2-hour difference, but it was basically 9 to 5. And what did I enjoy about that? What did I not enjoy about that? Just kind of like processing all of that in my head, I guess. That's my tangent to tackle that question, but I'm sure there's much more. I feel like I'm just getting warmed up.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a lot of options and a lot of, like you said, a lot of thoughts and multiple directions. Thank you.
I'm curious to. So there's a couple of questions I have. So my first question is, what interested you, I guess, about streaming that it became like a priority for you to like try and like go through this? And then
Well, stop right there.
yeah, I
One
guess
at a
we'll
time.
just start there. Yeah.
Okay. So what interested me in making streaming more of a priority? That was the question.
Yeah, like what made you excited to stream?
So I when I first ever did a stream, I was like, it dates back to the YouTube days before streaming on YouTube was cool, where there was this like thing that popped up on my YouTube channel at the time, and it was like, yeah, like Google Plus, social media platform that used to exist. They have this like video chat Hangouts thing, and they had this thing called Hangouts on Air where you could like broadcast on YouTube. And I was like, whoa, this sounds cool. I'm going to stream my Toontown multiplayer childhood game experiences, you know, just for fun. I had no other reason. No, not in it for the money, not in it for the views. I was just like, this sounds fun. Let's do this. And I just remember how much fun that first stream was. There were a lot of people that just like tuned in, and I was like, I feel like I've just discovered a whole new world, like that is like not as like mainstream or anything. Is granted, it is sort of kind of nowadays. So literally, it was just for the enjoyment of it. Gave me something to do to pass the time when I wasn't doing like homework in school, outside of, you know, school activities or anything. And it was a great way for me to like build my social sphere up when I never really had like any super close friends when I was in school or anything. So for me, it was just a great way to like connect with people. And I just I really enjoyed those moments. And it's kind of like, you know, innocent childhood. Like, you know, I'm just sitting there on my laptop, staying up way past my bedtime, trying not to get caught by my parents, like just to hang out with my friends in game on Toontown or whatever. and eventually turned it into streaming it. And I just at first it was just like for fun, and then people would watch, found the opportunity to end up using my platform to fundraise for charity. That has turned into a whole purpose for me behind what I do. And nowadays I am sort of trying to kind of redefine myself as a creator, in the sense that I'm not just that one main niche, but I'm broad and I don't know what the word is, like I can do so many things, like I'm capable of so much. And that's just something I continue to silently tackle, I guess. Even though nowadays, like, I've graduated college, I've moved into a house with people who understand what I do, some of who do what I do, and I kind of just stay on my own path rather than like reaching out to them or anything to ask for anything. I'm going off in a different direction here. So
You're good. I'm actually curious because like it sounds like streaming for you was kind of this like thing that you just kind of came into. It just yeah, to quote you, you were just saying like, oh, it was just like fun, and it just we passed the time. It was exciting to meet people and stuff like what changed, I guess, for you to feel like that wasn't what you wanted to keep doing anymore, and why you like want to broaden your horizon, I guess.
I should clarify that first of all, streaming the one game, it's not something that I necessarily don't want to do. Still, it's more of a I want to um, I want to have more space to include more things on top of that. Um, and it's kind of like how my college experience was, where I actually came in as like a vocal performance major at first, because I sang in choir when I was growing up and I loved it, and I was like, oh, this sounds fun, like singing in college or whatever. And I ended up like swapping over to a different major because I was like, I have this passion for music, but I also have this passion for other things too, like streaming. So that's an example of me kind of like putting in the steps to kind of like expand my scope and expand my capability of learning different things. I so would you mind just repeating the question, because I lost my train of thought?
Oh, I was just kind of curious, like, what made you feel like you wanted to broaden your horizons within streaming? Like, what?
Yeah, I think because in total at this point I've been streaming for over 10 years. So when you do the same thing for 10 years, eventually things get stale and you feel like for the sake of I think I started obsessing a little too much over analytics in the past. I've since done that a lot less, but growing up as a kid, like higher numbers is exciting and more people watching you is exciting. So I would hyperfixate on analytics, and whenever I was like, doing well, like I'd be like, all right, I have to keep this going, keep streaming the same thing over and over and over again, even if I have to put my happiness or my interests as a person aside just for the sake of interacting with more people. So I guess in that sense, the lens sort of shifted in that instance when I was, you know, and that's something I've since shaked off a lot. Maybe sometimes that feeling comes back, but I quickly set it to the side. I uh, I'm doing a lot better now at just like really enjoying like who shows up, who's there, no matter if I have like X amount of people, high or low. I just I think like I think that kind of changed a lot. I really hyperfixated on like, oh, I have to like get partnership, and I think I was one of those creators who did that, pushed a partnership back then, and looking back at it 4 years of partnership later, you kind of realize how silly that was, and how much you hyperfixated over these little things. Granted, not that being a partner is a bad thing, because I really enjoy being a partner, but it was just like one of those things. Well, like, wow, why did I put so much energy into that? And it kind of feels like inputting so much energy into chasing that, that accolade, that achievement, I kind of ended up losing sight of some of the original reasons why I started streaming in the first place, where it was, I just want to have fun. I just want to connect with people. So I think, because I think there are a good number of partners out there who will talk about how like they have that drop of viewership or whatever, and that gets into their head after they become a Twitch partner, or whatever accolade they hit on whatever platform. And that certainly got to me when it happened for me. But I kind of had to take a step back and realize, like, I had to ask myself why I worked so hard to make that happen. And then I had to I had to kind of like acknowledge to myself, like, I still have a lot to bring to the table. I might not know exactly what that is in this moment, but I know that I can still bring value to our community, to this platform, to whatever it is I do. Like, I kind of acknowledge, like, I'm capable of so much more. School, not necessarily getting in the way, because it was my priority above the priority of streaming. But I had always, like, in the back of my head, I was like, oh, I really want to, pursue this more. But, the whole taking it to the next level idea, but I've always been like a little scared and intimidated too, because I've literally seen friends who, one of them is here, who has gone full time, backtracked to part time, went full time again, and I'm just kind of like, what's the point of calling yourself full time? Like, I mean, it just seems like, oh, like, again, you made it, but like, I just kind of feel like going at my own pace. I feel like I don't have to necessarily adhere to that expectation. Like, if you go full time, you made it. I kind of just silently say, yeah, I'm kind of putting more effort into this, but I don't necessarily call myself full time. I just I'm like, yeah, I'm just putting more effort into this. So
let's pause for a second and try to summarize. What are y'all hearing? What have y'all heard from Smirky? What do y'all think are the kind of relevant points, or what kind of popped out to you about?
The part where my ears pricked up was when he asked himself, like, why did I push myself so hard to get partner?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm not sure about everyone else, but I felt like I was definitely sold an idea from Twitch, that like, when I was an affiliate before I was a partner, even before affiliate was a thing, partnership was like the be all and end all. It was the goal. It was emotes. It was the transcoding. It was the prestige. It was having your name go up on this like little placard on TwitchCon, and the partner lounge and the partner party, and it was all these little things that make you this like weird pseudo celebrity, and you're basically, by the time you get it, it's the thing you put on your resume. It's like when you're applying for another job, you're like, I got partnered with Twitch, and they're like, oh, that's cool. That's basically it. Like, it I'm not saying it's meaningless, but I definitely wouldn't jump on yourself for pushing yourself for it back then, because like, I'm almost 3 years into partnership, and I'm not saying like, oh, why did I push myself so hard? I know exactly why I pushed myself so hard. I wanted to be one of those people that was being sold to me. And it's not like partners are any different. I roll out of bed just like anyone else and feel dead inside, and like, I still have to put my pants on one leg at a time, two if I'm feeling really daring. So, um and when I, show up in somebody's chat and they're like, oh my god, he's a partner, and I'm like, my guy, I didn't even wash my face yet. Like, I feel like crap. Like, it's just it's a thing. It's a thing. By
I
my
wanted
name.
to chime in real quick because I have to leave soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, not everyone can make partner. I forgot what the data was exactly, but it's like in the single digit, like the percentage of people that can be partner on the platform. But once you hit that level, you're just kind of like, yeah, what's next? Because you might be ambitious as well. You want to have challenges. You want to, like, you've been doing this for 10 years. Like, I've been through the same thing. I was streaming since Justin TV when I was in college. I was like, I'm bored. I don't have any homework. Like, let's just get on here and talk to people. So yeah, I understand that. Like trying to find out what's next. But before I hop off, I think maybe some job titles you can consider is like gaming, community management in gaming, or maybe influencer manager, because the insight from your experience could be helpful for that. And you're also going to be present in the gaming space, so might
Yeah,
want to check that out.
those are titles I've definitely like put some thought into for sure. Both while I was in college figuring out my next steps, and every now and then in passing. It's those are things I've thought about. I've subscribed to newsletters. I've certainly asked within my network of people about what their experiences are, the realities versus the expectations of said roles and said industry, what it's really like bestowing that title. So those are things I've certainly done in my time as well.
Okay. Have you tried reaching out to random people that you don't know in the industry as well, like cold calls,
I haven't done
cold emails?
I've done maybe a few cold emails, but not recently, nor have I done like I guess one of those informational interviews where you're just kind of like shadowing and asking questions and stuff. I know that's like something I could do, and I just haven't. But yeah.
I would also recommend that because if you're talking to people within your network, they kind of have that bias, like, oh, I know Smirky, love Smirky, gonna tell them nice stuff. But if you reach out to people you're not too familiar with, it's gonna be a little scary and you're gonna be nervous, but then you kind of get an idea of like, okay, this is how, other folks in the industry can operate, and this is the type of language that they're using. These are their expectations. So I recommend doing that too, like making a template for an email, kind of having like a little story about yourself, like, hey, this is me, I'm a content creator, like this is my quick background. Could I have a informational, get to know you and what you do at your company?
I'm
But on
filing
that
that away.
on
Yeah.
that note, I gotta go. Thank you so much. I'm
Thanks,
sorry I can't
Kathy.
stay
Yay.
longer.
Thank you.
Bye.
She's got to go network.
Go do it.
I
Go do
have
the
a
thing.
meeting. Bye.
Yeah, go
Go
kick
to the
some ass.
meeting.
Thanks for coming, Kathy.
I picked up on Smokey saying that up and up and up and up and up. Like that stuck in my head, and it's like, when does it end? And I was going to ask you like the question of like, where do you think it ends? Like where do you think like it's heading? But then you've kind of also answered it in some point talking about the partner thing, like that was a grind to something, and then it's like, then what? And
It was like
like
I wasn't thinking 2 steps ahead then, and now I'm like I have to think 2 steps ahead. So
Did you do the thing that I did where it's like, wouldn't it be cool if I was a Twitch ambassador someday?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. it's like I could make my check mark shiny.
I mean, it's that's certainly not the reason why I would want to express interest in that. Now I
No.
certainly have a different lens around going after an ambition like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have my own ambitions that differ today for ambassador than I did when I was an affiliate chasing for partner.
Yeah. No,
I have
it's not just a step.
very yeah, no, for sure. And I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even know if that is like the next step, or maybe it is, maybe it isn't. There's so much that like a lot of partners can be doing as a partner, and they can find their own next step. It doesn't have to be that small cohort of ambassadors on
It's just like
a
this, like
platform.
it's like a plus on a test that you put on your fridge. I think
It's like getting like a SS rank instead of an S rank.
yeah, it's just another form of validation that we all crave. I think.
I just did it for the shiny check mark. Like,
There you go.
Hey.
no, I don't know. I literally said, "Why did you pick me? how did you find me? Where did you come
Right.
Oh my god.
from?" Yeah.
So that's how it works. All right, good to know.
Cell seems like they have something to say, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, to talk more when I was listening to you talk about your things, I felt like a lot of the things that you were saying about streaming felt like it was codependent on other people or other things that were not uh, necessarily from you. So it was like and it sounds like you actually found this out about yourself too, with like being like obsessed over analytics. Obviously, like the partner push thing, this idea of like what you are past partnership, viewers, like like I felt like a lot of the things that you said about streaming was kind of just buried under this like umbrella of fun, but fun can mean a lot of things, right? Like what is it about streaming that is fun to you versus just like, because you said your first stream was fun because you had viewers. It was passing the time. It was something that you did outside of college, and you were able to connect with people. And so, like for me, I mean, for me, the strongest hook there that came from it sounded like you personally was like that connection to people that you felt,
Yeah.
and maybe you know, like but the other things, like, you know, pass the time, it's like, well, there's a lot of things we can do to pass the time to have fun, right? And so like what makes streaming special? What makes that the thing that you want to do, you know? And like if you didn't have viewers, like would streaming still be fun? And so like that's where my mind went to when I was like listening to things that you were saying, is like, you know, and I guess this is where I relate, because I use other people as metrics for my own success and happiness all the time, and so it's kind of like, okay, so isolating that out, you know, like without the dependence on other people, what does streaming and like content creation look like to you, and like what about it would be fulfilling? So that's where my mind went to.
Yeah, it's interesting how dependent the industry is on each other. On one hand, it's like a collaboration, let's connect, let's work together side. And then on the other hand, it's you know, it's like, hey, like I'm building my network, and you know, I can use that to my advantage, or I can get this promotion, or I can achieve this fancy status or whatever. It's I don't know. I acknowledge how vital that is in an industry like this, and I also um, am not the biggest fan of it, because I think that, you know, I think people have amazing stories to share and amazing experiences um, that we can all like learn from each other. And I, over the years, have done my best to, you know, be, you know, kind and understand and listen to people, where I can, like, you know, if I'm meeting someone at a convention, like I'm not necessarily asking, oh, how many followers do you have, or what's your you know, what how great is your, you know, community. I want to like know more about them. And I also try to do it in a way where I'm not being like nice. Like I'm not being like performative about it. Like I'm always like hyper aware. Like I don't want to come off as like performative. I want to like actually get to know you and maybe be friends someday. And I don't want to like you know, like I'm trying to be kind, but I don't want to necessarily like you know, come off as inauthentic. And it's so easy for people to just see pass through when someone is like trying to be nice for the sake of maybe their own advantage, or you know, just trying to add that extra person to the network or whatever. It's also like also maybe you idolize a certain person and you just really want to meet them, but at the end of the day, we're human beings, you know, just like them, and just like Metric said, really.
Yeah.
So
So Smirky, I've got a quick question. What can you do
absolutely.
you feel comfortable telling us about your IRL relationships?
Sure. Is there any aspect that you would like to know?
Well, you just mentioned that Izelle kind of pointed out. You mentioned that like connecting with other people is a big part of what you found fulfilling about streaming. So I was trying to get a sense of like whether you find what your connections are like IRL.
Yeah, and I think for me personally, like because I was so invested in streaming at an early age, it helped me like build confidence in myself to like strike conversations with other people and to form relationships IRL that way, whether it was like in high school or college. Um, I do a really good job at like forming like more professional relationships, or like just relationships within a certain context, academic, extracurricular. And I don't, you know, and I feel like I have a lot of work to do in the sense of like forming personal relationships. I don't know, like in the world of like, dating and getting to know people personally, like I never really saw that as a priority while I was in school. I was always like in that professional mindset, like whether it was streaming or whether it was so I never really like sought that. And now it's like a bit more of something that I'm interested in because like I said earlier, I never really had any close friends. I would always observe close friendships and kind of be like still a friend but not necessarily like have like a super close relationship. So I guess it was not necessarily being jealous or envious of like other people who had close relationships, but I just kind of noticed that I would be friendly to a lot of people, and I would uh like kind of have like a large circle of like people that I know, but I never really like had anyone that was like close to me other than I guess immediate family members that
You're
I
you were using the
yeah.
word had, so has that changed now, or you still sort of feel like you don't have great IRL
Um
connections that are a little bit more deep?
I feel like I've kind of let some of the IRL connections that I created in high school and college kind of like slip away over time,
Mm-hmm.
especially with like graduating and going down my own path, which is
Sure.
pretty unconventional, with like trying to put more focus into gaming and streaming versus like, oh, getting that master's degree or going to get a 9 to 5 job. I still have mutuals who will every now and then, if it's like on a personal Facebook post or if I am posting on my content creation stuff, they will reach out, say hi. I have a few IRL friends that do stop by and check in, but I don't, there's a lot of great connections that I had that were pretty strong that are not necessarily as strong. So that is a little saddening to me. I don't know if it's just like because of the passage of moving on to the next chapter, but I think it also has to do with me just not. I'm not necessarily blaming myself here to preface, but not putting in the effort to
Sure.
like reach out to those people and to
And
do that on my end too.
and so when you kind of think about, let's say, streaming versus getting a 9 to 5, in a perfect world, what would streaming, what would you want from streaming?
Um, I would say, um, I think a lot of people would relate when it comes to like a more stable financial
Mm-hmm.
perspective of content creation. I think
Sure.
that's if everyone had some kind of stable financial or health um, benefit, or like if streaming had the same kind of thing as a 9 to 5, I think a lot more people would be open to that idea of pursuing it more. But we're essentially, I guess, independent contractors when it comes to like being self-employed, or as me and my friends like to call it, fun employed. So it's yeah, I think that's one thing. I and I know a lot of creators like to not talk about that kind of stuff, money, analytics, things like that. But that is a reality of it, I think.
Sure.
Um, uh, I I don't know. I think again, the kind of like those close relationships I keep talking about. I'd really like to have some close friends if I ever can, because I do a really good job at building those professional connections. I have more personal connections with some of the people in this household. I would like to have some some more of that, whether it's within certain communities that I identify with, or if it's just in general. Really, I think streaming has certainly opened the door to meeting a lot of great people, and I just kind of have to. I feel like I have to kind of like work on opening myself to that because
So I'm curious, if you, in a perfect world, if you were
uh-huh.
streaming exactly the way that you wanted to and everything was working out how you wanted it to, what would you be getting from streaming? So you mentioned financial stuff, you mentioned some amount of things like benefits, close friends, what else? if anything?
I think, let's see. I guess like, I don't know if this counts, like self-confidence as well as the confidence to put myself self out there authentically. And
Sure.
one thing I've never really done much of, which I'm just now starting to crawl into as of this week, is like working with brands. Because like one thing I do in consecration is a very niche game as my main game, and not really many people know about it. And now I feel like I have a bit more of a presence granted to like start reaching out to brands. Obviously, I like literally worked with one brand in the industry as like a intern, but it's different when it comes from like a creator company brand relationship. And that's something, even after 10 years, I'm only just now really diving into, because that's pretty essential, I think. So
I'm gonna thank you very much. Is it okay if I sort of try to repeat back and frame this discussion a little bit?
sure, absolutely.
So the first thing that I kind of want to point out is, what did y'all notice about how Smirky answers questions?
Very thoughtful. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think Smirky always tries to be very considerate of the other person's framing of the question and like not trying to make them feel bad about Smirky's response to them.
He's also worried that his answers are going to make other people feel bad.
Right? So like I remember when he was like, I know a lot of people don't mention finances. So he
Yeah.
adds some almost disclaimers to what he speaks. I think when you say thoughtful, I would say he adds a lot of context to what he says.
Very detail oriented.
Yep.
Like I've been told in the past when I was working part-time at my school that like there was an instance where it was like, if I have one piece of feedback for you, you're too detailed. You need to like, you got to simplify things just a little more so that like the customer can understand it, right? So
Sure.
that way I'm not giving them too much information.
So Smirky, I'm going to ask you to pause.
Yeah.
What did y'all notice about how Smirky answers questions? So what kind of answers have we given so far?
Can I make an observation on how he answered the last question?
Please
It was
do.
It was based off of what someone else wanted from him, and how someone else wanted Smirky to be. Like, I know it was in a job, but it's clearly something you've held on to mentally about the way you talk and explain things.
So one thing that I've kind of noticed is that he answers a lot more than the question. Is that fair to say? So our job in group is to help Smirky figure out his stuff. And so what's really good about the way that Smirky answers questions is that you can ask one question and you're going to get 5 answers, which we actually absolutely want, right? At this phase. But at some point, it's actually our duty to help him focus a little bit. So right now we're in the exploration phase, so this is totally fine. But we've even heard from Smirky that he's kind of gotten that feedback in the past. My intention is not to make you feel embarrassed, Smirky, but I think like as we're listening, like we all kind of notice that, right? So he's giving us a lot of information. And the other thing that's kind of challenging is that I can imagine that it's hard for... I've made this observation that when my mind is doing that, it's really hard for me to like come up with a answer. Because it's like, I'm going to do this, but then there's also this thing to consider and this thing to consider and this thing to consider and this thing to consider. And like, I think it's actually our responsibility to help him organize everything that he puts out and kind of give it back to him. So I'd like to try to do that now and leaning on some of your colleagues. Is that okay, Smirky?
Absolutely.
So here's what I heard from you. So I heard that you started streaming a long time ago. And when you really started streaming, you did it for fun. And we dug into a little bit about what fun means. So it sounds like you like Toontown, but you also really enjoy like forming connections with people. And you're actually, what makes you quite exceptional is that you're one of the few people for whom streaming has improved your social situation. Because most people, what I hear is that I started streaming and then I forgot how to interact with the other humans.
Right, because you're enclosed in this like digital bubble on a screen.
Yeah,
right.
But actually what Smirky told us is like through college and stuff, he actually like it helped him overcome maybe some amount of like anxiety or something, and he was actually able to get friendly with a lot of people. But now what we sort of hear... Huh?
Oh yeah, able to get friendly, pursue leadership opportunities.
Sure.
Things like that.
Yeah, right? So he actually like socially benefited from streaming, which is rare. And yet we're sort of hearing now that Smirky is friendly with more people than he is friends with. Right? That while he has a lot of people in his bubble, like in the nucleus of the bubble, there don't seem to be that many people. And when it comes to like, okay, so like Smirky kind of tossed out a question. He's like, okay, so I've got some relationships with Elgato and Corsair. Do I get a 9 to 5 with them and then kind of stream on the side? Or do I kind of go full-time? And we heard about the yo-yo of full-time, part-time, full-time, part-time, full-time, part-time, right? And so he's kind of like, okay, so like Smirky's understands the challenges he faces. And then he's even shared with us some of the ways that he's framed his solutions, which is, I'm not going to call it something. It's going to be like, how hard on the gas pedal do I want to push? More effort, less effort, right? So this is what we've heard from him so far. He acknowledges, as do we all, that there are financial challenges with streaming, right? And especially with some of the changes, for example, that are going on in Twitch and stuff like that. Like, you know, Ruby's going to start running 9 minutes of ads an hour during her meditations. And so that, like, you know, there are all kinds of evolving things. And this is kind of what I'm hearing. So when I hear Smirky's goals for streaming, I hear finances and some amount of stability and security, the ability to like form connections with other people. He mentioned this a little bit earlier, but not recently. But I do think charity is really important to Smirky, that he's able to use his platform as a vehicle to like make the world a better place, because Lord knows that the internet doesn't always make the world a better place.
That is so true.
Right.
I'm just trying to be the good that people want to see in spaces like the internet.
Yeah.
It's important to me to be a vehicle of good, and it doesn't matter how much good, X amount of dollars. Like, I just want to do good.
Yep.
Like,
and
period.
And I'm going to take a page out of Ruby's book and sort of comment that this is when Smirky interrupted my monologue. He didn't interrupt my monologue when I said making money. So he didn't jump in and be like, yeah, I want to make a ton of money. Right? Like, that's so important to me. Like, I want to have a yacht and I want to have a plane. No, like, so when we think about ranking these things, even his responses are information. So I think if I gave Smirky a chance, he's one of these rare souls on the internet or in the world, that if you could raise 200 grand for charity and make 100 grand yourself, or make 200 grand and make 100 grand for charity, I suspect he may be one of these rare creatures that would raise more money for charity, and twice as much charity is what he brings home. So we're even starting to see some amount of prioritization in terms of like what's important to him. Okay. And then we've got this I do think he genuinely enjoys the work of streaming. Like, is my guess, right? We haven't really talked about that much.
I do. And I am trying to get back into things like video, like YouTube content, because I did some of that in the past, and now I kind of lost those skills and I'm a little rusty, and I really enjoy streaming though. That's like my forte. Okay. To put it lightly.
Yeah. So now our job, and the last thing is that he mentioned confidence. So somewhere along the way, we haven't dug into this too much, and we'll get more into it. Perhaps not today, but like we'll definitely talk about this some. But like we need to better understand, what does confidence mean to him? Where does it come from? What makes him confident? What makes him not confident? Right? He's exploring different kinds of things like brands and stuff like that. So he's exploring lots of stuff. So what I'm hearing from Smirky is that he understands that there are a lot of different directions to go in. So he could go with brand partnerships. He could go back to making YouTube videos. He could get unrusty here. He needs to form these kinds of relationships, needs to make a little bit of money, wants to do a little bit of like save the world kind of thing. Right? But then the question is, how much of each thing and in what order? And this is the challenge that I'm hearing Smirky faces. Would you all agree? So it's our job as a group to help him sort through all that crap. Fair enough? Right? Because, like, does that sound like a good goal for you, Smirky? Would you be...
Yeah, I think sorting will be a good piece of the puzzle for me. I definitely think so. There's just a lot there that is like, like having it all just kind of disorganized and like all cycling in my head, like mentally, like that can be pretty overwhelming, which can lead to lack of motivation.
So I'm going to jump in right here. I'm
Yeah.
going to jump in right here. So one thing that we're going to do, Smirky, that I'm going to model for the group is I'm going to interrupt you. Right?
Yeah.
So you said I need to get organized, and that leads to ...
Yes.
So part of that process of organization is going to be like interrupting you. So
Cool.
I need y'all to keep me in check if I'm doing it too much. Okay, so if you feel like I'm interrupting and like it's really not... Because I genuinely... So let me put it this way. If we've got 90 minutes, let's say we've got 90 minutes and that's all the time we've got with Smirky. Letting him finish all of the context versus interrupting and stringing things together for him, I think one will actually benefit him more than the other. Is that... So we definitely want to know. So we're going to ask later, for example, like what happens when you're not able to organize things. And that's when Smirky will say, I run into this motivation problem, this kind of thing. It's all actually useful information, but we need to kind of do like step one before we get to step two. So a couple of questions one question I've got for you, Smirky. You said that that's one piece of the puzzle. Are there other pieces of the puzzle that you can think of that like you sort of need to sort out? What else is on the puzzle? If organizing all of your thoughts is one of them.
And could you just also reiterate the puzzle for
what are the
purpose?
pieces that you need to organize?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess
absolutely. So financial stuff, and related to that is some amount of like security and stability in terms of like, if I don't know, are you in the US?
Yes.
So like health insurance and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
So it sounds like close relationships are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to you that you enjoy the work that you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to you to develop confidence, and I think to a certain degree explore new things and grow. And it's important to you to be a force for good in the world. Those would say, I'd say like the 5 things that sound like that's what you value.
Right. And I also do value the people that are in my community.
Okay.
Like, I think that like there's like this irrational fear of like, there's this irrational fear that, which I've slowly learned is BS, that I like could lose community if like some of my community, what defines my community if I'm going off and exploring these other avenues. Because what's kept it strong is this one game. But if I'm trying to redefine myself, who will come along for the ride? Who would stick around? So I guess that's this irrational fear of mine, I would say, because I acknowledge that's not always. It's like I see it as like a story in my head that might not necessarily be how it plays out, but
Okay.
it's something
So
that I think about.
I was in that problem,
Mhm.
and when I transitioned to variety, I can tell you what not to do.
Yeah.
So if you need help with that, I can tell you what I did that screwed me. And then, but basically, you want to make it gradual. You don't want to get burned out and then drop it like a rock, because oof, is not good. So
Yeah.
maybe
I-
do like your first, like, I don't know, 60% of stream, 50% of stream, like Toontown, and then switch to something else and just get people used to the idea of, hey, I'm Smirky and I play other games now. So
Yeah, I've been reframing myself gradually as a variety streamer, not just a Toontown streamer or things like that.
yeah,
I certainly when I say my process is gradual, it is very, very gradual. I take things pretty slow in terms of like trying to implement something new or trying to figure out how to change my overlays or my
So I'm going
branding.
to
or things
interrupt
like that.
again.
Please
So-
do.
A good point. I'm glad you shared that. This is once again an important conversation, but I'm going to impose a value system that is strategy before tactics. So before we get down into how does Smirky transition from Toontown to Variety, which is a very important question. Do y'all get that? Like, I'm not suggesting it isn't important. First question is, does he want to get a 9-to-5 job or does he want to stream? Do y'all get that? Like, we have to answer some big picture stuff first before we get down to the little picture stuff. And this is what I've seen, especially with a lot of streamers, is that y'all just are playing this game that is like no one knows the rules and no one knows how anything works. And you just kind of grind and you explore and you figure things out. And some of y'all rise to the level of partner, right? You're like the 1% or single digits.
Right.
Whatever, right? So it's like less than 10%. And then like what happens is you become somewhat successful without like learning some basic things. And what I've really found is that when it comes to like content creators, what's really successful is like teaching them basic stuff. Like first figure out, are you going to stream full time or not? And then we'll figure out the how. Like let's figure out what and what the goals are before we figure out how to implement them. And streamers are, yeah.
Sorry, and I can answer it if
Nope.
that's okay. No?
We don't want your
No?
answer yet.
Cool.
We want to be able to deduce your answer because you may have an answer, but we want to ask you questions so that we can figure it out.
I mean, that's why this is a group.
Right? So we're going to absolutely get your answer. I know this is a little bit weird in group, but the person who's got the answer gives us the answer last. And it's our job because we may discover things about you that you won't share with your answer. And once you give us the answer, the discussion is closed. Does that kind of make sense? You're like,
Yeah.
I want to do this. So the first thing that I kind of want to point out is when it comes to streaming, and if once again, Smirky, if this gets frustrating, you just want to speak, you just tell me, you just do it, okay? Like you can tell me,
Okay.
Dr. K, go, shut the, and just let me speak. You can.
All right.
That's fair game, okay?
Fair game.
Because I'm doing it to you, so you got to
Yes.
be able to do it to me. So the first thing that I want to point out is one challenge that we see with a lot of content creators is that they try to check all of their needs through streaming. This is something that y'all have to be really careful about. So I'm not saying that you can't work full-time as a content creator and pay your bills. I'm not saying you can't work as a content creator and find good, loving relationships. But you've got to be really thoughtful about whether that's the strategy you really want to use. Right? So out of these different kinds of things, like, you know, when it comes to financial stability, is that something that streaming or getting a 9-to-5 job and then streaming on the side? Because the important thing for Smirky is that he checks all the boxes. They don't have to be through streaming. And sometimes even trying to do it through streaming is actually less efficient. Like, so, you know, just as a simple example, I'm a medical doctor. And so in terms of paying my bills, it's actually harder through streaming than it is because I've invested in a career outside of it. Right? Smirky's got a master's degree. Like it just may be easier for him to pay his bills outside of streaming. And then maybe at some point, once he sorts out the brand stuff and he's got his YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff, he's doing charity and his front paging and stuff like that, like he can quit his job. But that's just something to consider. You want to say, go for it, Smirky.
Clarification, bachelor's degree, not a master's. Yeah.
Still,
Point of clarity. Yeah.
You
So-
could have
I got
lied on your resume right there. Damn it.
that was my chance.
So that's just something that like we should think a little bit about. It sounds like Smirky's got something to share though in terms of where his answer is there. So why don't you go for it, Smirky?
In terms of the answer to the question, do you want to stream or
Yeah.
9 to 5? What my answer currently is the want is to pursue more energy into streaming, and I get pulled away by the, I guess, I don't know if need is the right word, expectation's the right word, to do industry plus streaming, but more industry. But the want is to do more streaming, if that makes sense.
So if you had your way, you would make money through streaming and not get pulled to industry.
If I had my way, I would with streaming more.
Sure. Right. So that's I think that's important to know, and I'm pretty sure we would have guessed that. Is that fair to say? Maybe not, but I think it's a good clarification. So now what I'd like to do is so I think I'm just trying. Can I just think for a second?
For sure.
I just want to be a little bit conscious of our time.
Yes.
Okay, so here's what I think we should do. I think we should give Smirky an opportunity to play with this concept and kind of sort of work through some of it and come back to us like post homework, Smirky, if you're okay with that. Because I really think that we can get a lot from homework that we may not be able to get through conversation.
Sure. Would it be okay if I can ask what it is that you're looking for me to work through in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what's coming next.
Okay.
So what I'm kind of curious about is for like the goals that you have, let's say finances, benefits, developing close relationships, enjoying what you do, developing confidence, doing charity work. And I'm actually not even going to put community on the list. So this is a tricky one for me. I think we probably need to do more exploration around that. But I get the sense that community may be a combination of connections and making the world a better place. I don't know if it's its own thing or it's actually like you care about building a community or you care about building. So I can't tell if it's separate or it's just like it's kind of a combination of the two. So you can tack it on there if you want to. But out of those 6 or 7 things, I want you to think a little bit about which one, what are kind of the pros and cons of going the industry route to check that box, or let's call it IRL route, and the streaming route. So IRL could be industry. And then what we really need to help you do is figure out how can you allocate your time efficiently to check all 7 of those boxes. Because the goal here is to help you. We're going to give you everything that you want. The question is, does it have to be through streaming or is streaming the most efficient way? And there may be like branch points down the road. So like if you don't have health insurance right now and you need to get health insurance, like that's expensive. And how many hours would you have to stream in order to get health insurance? Like that's huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to answer that now, but I want you to think a little bit about like, so what we're going to try to do, Smirky, is help you organize your thoughts and really prioritize. Because what I'm hearing is that you're very good at figuring out what's important, but you're weaker in terms of sequencing. Like you're really good at figuring out what you need to do, but like, should you grind more on Toontown so that you can get more subs so that you can afford health insurance? Or should you polish up your YouTube skills? Like, I think the opportunity cost is very hard with the way that you're sharing information with us. Does that make sense to people? Smirky, yeah?
Yeah, it makes sense to me, especially with how much has changed since I first started versus now, with how much content creation has changed, both for better and for worse.
Right. So, and I think this is also where Kathy had made some suggestions. I think that those are a little bit more tactical and good suggestions, but that's where we need to come up with all of the suggestions. And then we're going to rank them in terms of like what you're going to do first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So her suggestion is on there, but there may be something better to do as opposed to cold emailing people. And the other thing, you have to be a little bit careful with Kathy's suggestions because she knows she's a good hustler at heart. And so I think your mileage may vary in terms of of what to expect from that, right?
Yeah.
So if it's okay with y'all, I wanted to spend a couple minutes sort of even thinking bigger picture and talking a little bit about Zell's homework. Is that okay?
That's okay with me. I will probably dip in like 10, 15 minutes so I can start a stream. But
Totally fine. So just if you're streaming, just let us know so that we will raid you at the end. Okay, Smirky?
got it.
Okay, so Zell, you did your homework. Do you feel I may have just trapped you, but are you okay talking about it in a little bit more depth?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So first thing I'm going to ask is, hold on one second. I wanted to share certain pieces of it. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's totally
Okay.
fine.
So this is what I read from Zell's homework. So Zell, so give us a quick summary, like a 2-minute summary of what you learned from your homework.
Just to give people context again, what is fulfilling to me? What have I done that fulfilled me? I had a very hard time answering this question. Feels like a lot of the things that kind of propelled my life were based off of decisions made by other people versus myself. And when it comes to finding my own personal fulfillment, it's a very difficult question for me to answer. And at this point, I feel like I've over-romanticized the notion of what fulfillment means. And so it's sort of like kind of meaningless to me. And
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so we're going to tunnel down into that. So one thing that I really love from your homework is you said, so you've spent most of your time being forced into doing things and putting your energy into things that avoided the things that you were forced into. So it's
Yeah.
like your parents want you to do this, but out of defiance, you're going to play League of Legends. And I thought you had a great sentence in there, which was that what you were addicted to was escaping from what the world was forcing you to do. Then what you said, you over romanticized the concept of fulfillment. Can you help us understand what the hell that means?
I think it's just like kind of like with words like happiness, fulfillment, success, we tend to put them on a pedestal. And I think that's kind of what I mean by it is like I've turned fulfillment into this like big overreaching term, and it feels like kind of heavy to even say that I've fulfilled anything anymore. And so I recognize that that's probably not the way to think about it. I mean, you can feel fulfillment in even just like cleaning your apartment. You don't have to do some sort of grand adventure to
Okay.
find fulfillment.
I'm going to interrupt because we're speed running this. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's think through this. So so Zell is saying you put her on a pedestal. Zell, have you ever been fulfilled?
I don't know.
The answer is no, then. We fair.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, group, y'all have to keep me in check. Like, right? So, like, I'm going to just take that I don't know and, like, oh, yeah, like, maybe you were secretly fulfilled and you just didn't realize it.
That's what I think.
So no, we'll get to this. So you're so close, Zell, and yet so far. Okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to find fulfillment in life now. Okay? We're going to do the 5-minute version. So I think the reason that Zell is like, so he's been chasing this thing called fulfillment, this romantic concept that's on a pedestal. And he's been chasing it, right? And this is why he says he's overvalued. He's placed it on a pedestal because it's this grand thing and he's never found it. So what he started to do is say, you know what? I don't need to chase fulfillment anymore. What do you think, Zell?
Yeah.
Okay. Right? Because that's what your life has been other people telling you to do stuff. And if you did that, what did you think you would find? You listened to your parents and you became a good boy. What were you hoping would happen?
That I would be fulfilled doing that, I guess.
Absolutely. And then you also retreated in the other direction because that wasn't fulfilling you, right? So you chased for fulfillment through fulfilling parental expectations. Didn't work. You escaped into all kinds of other fun stuff. Did you find fulfillment there?
Also, no.
But you were looking for it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then what you've naturally concluded to, and this is great. I'm proud of the group for helping you get here, is that like fulfillment doesn't come from either of those things. So now where are you going to look for it? Or are you looking for it?
Well, I'm trying to better figure it out from myself. Yeah.
Okay. And so in the past, you've looked outside for sources of fulfillment, correct?
Yeah.
And where are you looking for sources of fulfillment now?
From me now.
Okay.
Trying to figure out me. Yeah.
Right? So that's the natural answer. So you're like halfway like, oh, fulfillment comes from within.
Yeah.
And so do you think that this job that you accepted is going to fulfill you?
Right now, I don't know. Probably not, but maybe.
Okay. So this is where you're so close and so far. Because when you say, I don't know, you're still hoping it will, right?
Right.
I'll ask the group, is the job going to fulfill him?
His expectations
No.
are way
Nope.
off.
No.
Not going to work, Zell.
Well,
So does that mean he needs to find a different... We don't even know what the job is. Is he going to... If he finds a different job, is that going to fulfill him?
No.
So, Zell, what you're actually learning is very important. Because it's that you can't look for fulfillment out there. And fulfillment really comes from within. And what does that mean practically? That means that you have to set the targets. Like, you can go to the job, and this is the bizarre thing. The job can be fulfilling, or it cannot be fulfilling. The fulfillment doesn't come from the job itself. It comes from your attitude towards the job. So
You
I've
have to
worked...
like determine if it's like, I guess, fulfilling or not. Like, you eventually have to arrive at that conclusion.
It's going to be the way you relate to the job that determines whether it's fulfilling or not. So like this was really bizarre, but like, you know, when I was training, I would meet people who had cancer. I had one person when I was an intern. There's one patient that I formed a really close connection with. And towards the end of his life, they had lung cancer. And they were telling me that, yeah, like cancer is the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'm like, bro, you're dying. Like, what do you mean it's the best thing that ever happened to you? It's like, you know, you've got a 19-year-old son and a 17-year-old son. How is this the best thing that ever happened to you? And they took about 4 months to pass away. So it was really bad, actually. But like, they were just sharing with me how like this has put a lot of things in perspective and stuff like that. It's brought the whole family close together. He's realized that he's gotten 3 months, which he knew was going to end, where he shared a lot of stuff with his kids. Like, I'm still skeptical, but it was kind of interesting. And so it's the way that we relate to things. It's our attitude towards them that ultimately determines whether we're fulfilled in life or not. And if you want really, really strong evidence of this, all you have to do is look at Karens. Because what happens with Karens? Y'all are out of barbecue sauce? Oh my God! So what is the difference between a Karen and a not Karen? And I mean Karen in the gender neutral way, is in there are male Karens too. I don't know what that's called.
I guess it's like when I get asked why I'm so happy when I'm out, because like I'll be just doing shopping and humming, and like I've literally had people annoyed at me
Yes.
for just enjoying myself whilst picking out some food. Like,
So does that mean that Ruby, like, does the annoyance come from Ruby?
no.
it's got to be jealousy. Like,
So this is really important to understand. We like look for fulfillment, right? And what happens is Zell is like, oh, I listened to my parents and I looked for fulfillment and I didn't find it. And then I thought that this is the exact opposite of what they want me to do, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to find it there. And now you're like, I'm going to do this internal exploration, and I'll find it there. And that's not going to work either. And so it's your attitude towards the job. It's your attitude towards a relationship. Right? So like, this is also something where like I've worked with parents of kids who have special needs. And that's like, objectively, it's challenging. Right? I'm not meaning to offend anyone there, but I think most of the people that I've worked with, based on their experience, they tell me it's challenging. And yet your peace or suffering in that situation has everything to do with your attitude. So when you've got a special needs child, so I worked with a particular person who was a professional athlete from a family of professional athletes. And when they discovered that they were going to have a son, they were overjoyed because the family tradition will continue. And the son was born. Everything seemed okay. Things started to look unusual at about 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and they really started to realize that this child will never compete professionally. And that's how the person wound up as my patient, is they were devastated. And then over time, how did this person come to peace? Did they fix the problem? Did they transform their child into a non-special needs child? Of course not. It's all about the attitude. It's the way with which we approach things. And I can see Zell furrowing his brow, which is exactly where we're going to stop for today. Right? So if you understand what I'm talking about, because Zell clearly doesn't.
Zelfaro, new emote.
What we're going to have to do is y'all, like, I suspect oddly enough that y'all understand this maybe better than Zell does. And so what we're going to have to help him do is, like, get there. Any thoughts or questions before we wrap up?
I have so many questions, but I'll hold it.
Okay.
Why? How? When?
So why don't you share one or two of your questions, Zell, and just so we can get some material for your colleagues.
Well, it's less about. I guess it's partially a question, but it's a little bit context, because I think my problem is that because of the sort of lack of fulfillment in things, I've sort of tackled everything with the attitude that I'll grit my teeth through it. And so, like, everything that I've done has always just been like achieved through like determination and hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like trying to shift my attitude towards something is difficult because I think everything I do is difficult in some way or form, and like I achieve things through just hard work, and so it's like hard for me to distinguish how to separate that feeling of like putting hard work into something and achieving the thing that I want from the thing, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. Here's what I heard. You've played a strategy. You've been playing a particular strategy at life, which is that if I grind for something, I will succeed in the end, and then I will be fulfilled. What I'm hearing is that if I change my attitude, then I'll stop grinding. Because if fulfillment isn't out there, what's the point in grinding? And then you don't know how to function. Because then why are you doing it? And then why do you even wake up in the morning? Like, why do you shower? Right?
Right.
So you've been seeking fulfillment from the outside, and the presumption has been that if you grind hard enough, you'll get there. So if we take away the prize, if we're grinding a battle pass, but there's no loots in it, why do we grind the battle pass? And this is really wild, but I don't know if y'all remember this. Gaming was way more fun before we had battle passes. Back when we just played the game to play the game.
For achievements.
Before achievements.
Yeah.
And then something weird happened, and we started looking for battle pass rewards. And then what happened is we started getting really upset. Whereas we used to just play the game because the game was fun.
Remember when you couldn't even save the game sometimes?
Yeah.
And this is what's happening, like, in our society. It's a great, like, this is like What Buddha discovered a long time ago, we're discovering now in the reverse with battle passes, where we used to just play the game and it was blast. Like, I don't know if y'all remember, y'all ever did like LAN parties growing up, but there was no achievements. There was no unlocking cosmetics. We just showed up and we enjoyed life. And the bizarre thing is, it's not like we sucked. Battle passes don't make people better at the game. So our performance used to be good and we had more fun. What battle passes have added is this idea of like, if I grind, then I'm going to get something. The same attitude you've got. So it's okay if you don't know how. Zell, that's okay. I'm going to lean on your colleagues a little bit to kind of think about this a little bit. So since Zell's never experienced fulfillment, I'm going to hope that the three all have. And what I
degree.
and if Metric hasn't, that's totally fine. Then he's in Zell's camp. And I think Smirky is looking for direction, like he mentioned to us, but I suspect that he's felt fulfilled before.
I have.
Absolutely, right? So like, Zell is going to help you organize things and figure out your resume and stuff like that because he's a good little Korean boy. And what you're going to do is teach him the meaning of life, and it's going to be a fair trade.
The math checks out.
Okay? So, Smirky, what I want you to do is, like, for those 7 things, I want you to really think about what's a better, like pros and cons, and more importantly, to, like, prioritize, do I want to get this from IRL or do I want to get it from streaming?
Got it.
Ruby, if you can share with us a little bit about how you find fulfillment.
Yeah.
Metric, you can do whatever you want. I feel a little bit, I'm not sure where to go with you. Oh, actually, let's do this. So like, why don't you write a little bit about what your options are for jobs?
Okay.
Right. So what I'm going to like kind of punt you over to Kathy a little bit.
Okay.
And give Kathy something to work with. She can figure out the how if you give her the what.
Can I throw someone under the bus?
Yeah.
So Ruby felt bad last week that she didn't have somebody that she could vet on their homework.
Okay.
Or can I send it to Ruby as well?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So by the way, when I'm pairing y'all off that way, like you can submit it to as many people as you want to, and if you want to look at it, look at it. Right. The reason I was pairing people up is because I didn't want to increase people's work burden, because I wasn't sure, I don't want to sign y'all up for reviewing like 10 pages of homework if you don't have that kind of time. And then Zell, you need to, when do you start your job?
Next Wednesday.
Okay. So you
But I'll
have
still be able to make it, yeah.
Yeah. So you have sort of a hard task, which is to like on the first day of your job or even before then, try to understand what is the experience of fulfillment in the moment. And even if you don't feel fulfilled, you're going to get closer to it and further from it. Right? So like at one end of the spectrum is Buddha, and at the other end of the spectrum is Karen. And between there, you're going to notice some amount of oscillation. Does that make sense? There are going to be things that are more like frustrating for your soul. And if this doesn't make sense, that's okay. We'll meet you where you're at. But I'm hoping that this can sort of... When do you feel the least like a Karen? Can you do that?
Okay. Okay.
You got this. You got this.
I feel like I don't empathize very well with Karen, so I'm like, where do I stand there? But it's the idea of finding things frustrating versus just accepting as they are, or
not just frustration. So it may actually be easier for you to attain enlightenment than it is for you to empathize with a Karen, which is a first for me. But so I like I don't know how to say this, but there's going to be some amount of. So as you go through the day, you're going to experience emotions. That's fine. But there are going to be some things which are going to make you like feel really good in the inside of your being. And I'm not surprised that that may be hard for you to understand. So I want you to just play around with that.
Okay.
Right? So you mentioned there's like 100 anime things on a table.
Yeah.
And Ruby, I'm going to lean on you because this may be beyond my skills.
I've just been sat here trying not to like jokingly say you need to raise your vibration, Zell.
Yeah. I don't do that stuff, but I think Zell needs it. All right.
All right,
Okay, does
I have
everybody-
to run.
Okay.
But thank you all so much. This
Take
was
care.
great. All right,
Love you, boo-boo.
I'll see y'all. Bye.
Adios.
Bye, Smokey.
Okay. All right. Strong work, everybody. We'll see y'all next week.
Good hustle.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Cheers.
Bye.
Catch you later. Bye.
Man, that's rough. So I know it sounds so weird, but we got to do that sometimes where we're gonna throw Zell into the deep end because he's been doing too good. He's been making too much progress, and so we can't have that. So we got to make things hard for him. Do y'all? I never really thought about it that way, but do y'all think about, like, what do y'all think about that? Yeah, we gotta nerf him. Wait, is he Twitch.tv? Gotta nerf him. We're gonna buff Ruby and nerf Smirky. I mean, nerf Zell. Okay. And because this guy, even like with all the whatchamacall, even with all the, like, as he has like the logical answer. He's like, hey, is this like that weird acceptance crap people keep talking about? And then I'm like, no, actually, that's not what we're talking about. No, we're not going to let him get away with an intellectual answer. We got to let him suffer through it and learn from experience. Does this mean I have to accept things instead of nope, Zell, nope. GG noob. Not going to let you do it. All right, let's send some love to Smirky, see what he's doing. We'll see y'all. Oh, okay.